The soft hum of conversations and the clinking of ceramic cups filled the air in the upscale coffee shop nestled in downtown San Francisco. Logan Turner sipped his espresso as he leaned back in a sleek leather chair near the corner window. The afternoon sun cast golden streaks across his tailored grey suit, highlighting the tension in his otherwise calm demeanor. It was one of those rare moments when Logan allowed himself a brief reprieve from his packed schedule as the CEO of Ecosphere Innovations. Opposite him sat Natasha Reed, his COO and one of his closest friends since college. Natasha's polished appearance, sharp blazer, and effortless charm masked the calculated mind behind her easy smile. She flipped through a stack of documents on the table between them, her pen tapping rhythmically against her manicured nails. "This partnership with Helios Corp," Natasha said, her voice measured, "is exactly what Ecosphere needs to expand globally. It's a no-brainer, Logan. We can't afford to hesitate." Logan frowned slightly, swirling his cup. "I hear you, Natasha. But something about Helios Corp's aggressive push makes me pause. They've been circling too close to our tech for comfort lately." Natasha chuckled lightly, brushing her auburn hair back with a flick of her wrist. "That's business, Logan. Competitors will always hover when they see brilliance. It's your brilliance, remember?" Her words brought a faint smile to Logan's lips, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Natasha's reassurances always seemed to smooth over doubts, but today something gnawed at him. A few feet away, Myla Parker wiped down the counter, her gaze occasionally darting toward the duo. As a part-time barista, she'd grown accustomed to the steady flow of well-dressed professionals who frequented the cafe. But Logan Turner was different. Not only did his presence carry the weight of someone important, but his demeanor also exuded a kind of thoughtfulness she rarely saw in corporate types. She glanced over again just as Natasha's phone buzzed. Natasha's confident facade shifted subtly as she read the message. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes narrowing for a fraction of a second before she stood. "Excuse me," Natasha said, her voice honeyed but firm. "I need to take this." She shot Logan a quick smile. "I'll be right back." Logan nodded, sipping his coffee as Natasha disappeared toward the cafe's quieter back section. Mila's curiosity piqued. Something about Natasha's demeanor felt off. She didn't want to pry, but when Natasha moved to the cafe's secluded library corner, Mila found herself stepping closer under the guise of rearranging mugs. She could just make out Natasha's voice, sharp and clipped, though she kept it low. "Are we on schedule? I can't delay much longer." Logan's starting to ask questions. Mila's hand froze on the stack of cups. Her heart raced as she strained to hear more. "No, Helios Corp needs those specs by next week," Natasha hissed, her voice now tinged with irritation. "If Logan gets wind of this before the partnership is finalized, it'll all fall apart." Mila's breath caught in her throat. What was she hearing? She darted back to the counter before Natasha could notice her, her mind spinning. Logan Turner, the man whose innovative designs promised to revolutionize sustainable energy, was about to be betrayed by someone he trusted implicitly. Natasha returned a moment later, her smile effortlessly in place. "Sorry about that," she said, sliding back into her seat. "Just a supplier issue." Logan didn't seem to question it, but Mila's stomach churned. Could she really stay silent after what she'd overheard? The rest of the day passed in a blur. Mila tried to focus on her tasks, but the fragments of Natasha's conversation replayed endlessly in her mind. The stakes were too high for her to ignore. That night, after closing the cafe, she sat in her tiny studio apartment, staring at her phone. "Just leave it," she muttered to herself. "It's none of your business." But Mila wasn't the kind to let injustice slide. Her journalism professor had once told her she had a nose for the truth and the stubbornness to dig it up. Taking a deep breath, she opened her laptop and began searching for more information about Ecosphere and Helios Corp. She didn't find much at first, mostly glowing articles about Ecosphere's advancements in renewable energy. Logan was hailed as a visionary, a tech prodigy, with a genuine passion for the environment. Helios Corp, on the other hand, had a murkier reputation. Whispers of underhanded deals and stolen patents peppered forums and lesser-known blogs, but nothing concrete. Her pulse quickened when she stumbled across a recent press release. Helios Corp had announced plans for a new solar energy prototype strikingly similar to Ecosphere's yet-to-be-released designs. Mila's heart sank. It was all lining up. The next day, she kept her distance from Natasha, who lingered at the cafe with her usual air of confidence. But when Logan arrived mid-afternoon and sat by the window alone, Mila knew she had to act. As she approached his table, she felt her palms sweat. What if he dismissed her? Or worse, what if Natasha retaliated? But the memory of Natasha's words spurred her forward. "Mr. Turner?" Mila's voice came out quieter than she intended. Logan looked up, his blue-grey eyes meeting hers with a polite, curious expression. "Yes?" She hesitated, gripping the edge of the tray in her hands. "I need to tell you something. It's about your company. About Natasha." Logan straightened, his expression shifting to one of concern. "What do you mean?" Mila glanced around, lowering her voice. "I overheard her talking yesterday. She's working with Helios Corp. She mentioned plans to hand over your designs." Logan's face hardened. "That's a serious accusation." "I know," Mila said quickly. "I wouldn't come to you unless I was sure. Please just look into it. Something isn't right." Logan studied her for a long moment, his sharp gaze assessing whether to trust her. Finally, he nodded. "I'll take it from here. Thank you for telling me." Mila stepped back, relief flooding her. But as she returned to the counter, she noticed Natasha watching her from across the cafe, her expression unreadable. A chill ran down Mila's spine. That night, Logan sat in his office, replaying Mila's words in his mind. Natasha had been his confidant for years. Could she really betray him? He picked up his phone and dialed a familiar number. "Oliver, it's Logan. I need you to look into someone." Quietly. As the line clicked off, Logan leaned back in his chair, staring out at the city lights. If what Mila said was true, everything he'd worked for could be at stake. And if Natasha really was behind it, he wasn't sure how he'd face the betrayal. The soft, rhythmic tapping of rain against the cafe's wide windows mirrored Mila Parker's restless thoughts. She wiped down the espresso machine for the third time that morning, her hands moving on autopilot while her mind churned. The words she'd spoken to Logan Turner the day before replayed over and over in her head. She glanced at the corner window where Logan usually sat, half expecting him to appear, but the chair was empty. Across the room, Natasha Reed was perched at a table, scrolling through her phone with her usual air of cool detachment. Every so often, Natasha would glance up, scanning the cafe as though expecting someone, or watching. Mila swallowed hard. Natasha hadn't said a word to her since yesterday, but Mila couldn't shake the feeling that her movements were being scrutinized. "Hey, Mila!" A voice cut through her thoughts, startling her. She turned to see Elliot Carr, a tech-savvy regular who always came in with a laptop and 100 random tech theories. His bright smile was a welcome reprieve from the storm brewing in her head. "Morning, Elliot," she said, forcing a smile. "The usual?" "You know me too well," he quipped, sliding into a bar stool. "Black coffee, splash of oat milk, 2 sugars." As Mila prepared his drink, Elliot leaned on the counter. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," Mila replied, a little too quickly. Elliot raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced, but he let it slide. By the way, did you hear about that Helios Corp press release? They're claiming they've cracked the solar energy game, supposedly revolutionary tech. Myla froze mid-paw, her stomach twisting. Helios Corp? Yeah, Elliot said, oblivious to the sudden tension in her voice. It's all over the news. But get this, they're saying it's a proprietary innovation, but everyone in the industry knows they're more copycat than trailblazer. I wouldn't be surprised if they ripped it off from someone else. Myla's hand tightened around the coffee pot. It was too much of a coincidence. Helios Corp's sudden announcement, Natasha's whispers, and now Elliot's comment. It was all connecting. Here you go, she said, sliding his cup across the counter, her voice barely above a whisper. Elliot frowned, studying her. Myla, are you sure everything's okay? You seem distracted. She hesitated, glancing toward Natasha, who was still engrossed in her phone. Lowering her voice, she leaned closer to Elliot. If you knew someone was doing something wrong, really wrong, but exposing them might cost you everything, what would you do? Elliot blinked, surprised by the sudden intensity in her tone. Depends on what's at stake, but if it's big enough to ask that question, then it's probably worth the risk. His words struck a chord, echoing in her mind long after he returned to his table. Later that day, the rain had let up, leaving the city streets gleaming under the grey sky. Myla wiped her hands on her apron, her shift finally over, but she lingered near the counter, unsure of what to do. The bell above the cafe door jingled, and she turned to see Logan step inside. His presence immediately shifted the atmosphere, drawing quiet attention from the other patrons. Dressed in a dark coat and holding a leather portfolio, Logan looked every bit the tech mogul the headlines painted him as. He approached the counter, his expression unreadable. Myla. She felt her heart race. Mr. Turner. Do you have a moment? Myla nodded, untied her apron, and followed Logan to the corner table where he often sat. Once seated, Logan leaned forward, his voice low. I looked into what you told me, he began, his tone calm but serious. I've hired someone to investigate, but I need you to tell me everything you heard, exactly as you heard it. Myla nodded, recounting Natasha's conversation with as much detail as she could remember. Logan listened intently, his sharp eyes never leaving hers. When she finished, he sat back, his jaw tight. You're sure about this? Yes, Myla said firmly. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm telling the truth. Logan exhaled slowly, his gaze drifting to the window. Natasha has been with me since the beginning. She's my second in command, someone I've trusted with everything. If what you're saying is true... His voice trailed off, thick with disbelief and anger. Myla hesitated before speaking. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we see the least clearly. Logan's gaze snapped back to her, his expression softening. You're right, and I need to be sure before I do anything drastic. What happens if you find out she's guilty? Myla asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan's expression darkened. Then I deal with it. Before Myla could respond, the cafe door jingled again, and Natasha strode in, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. Myla stiffened, but Logan's calm demeanor didn't falter. Logan, Natasha said smoothly, her smile wide as she approached their table. Didn't expect to find you here. Just grabbing a coffee, Logan replied evenly. Natasha's eyes flicked to Myla, and for a split second, her smile faltered. And chatting with the staff, I see. Always the man of the people. Myla's cheeks burned, but Logan didn't rise to Natasha's bait. Just catching up, he said. Join me for a moment? Natasha hesitated, her gaze darting between them, before finally sitting down. Myla stood awkwardly, unsure if she should leave, but Logan gestured for her to stay. What's on your mind, Natasha? Logan asked casually, though there was an edge to his voice. Just wanted to check in about the Helios Corp partnership, Natasha said, her tone light but measured. Have you made a decision? I'm still thinking it over, Logan said. I want to make sure it's the right move. Natasha's smile tightened. Of course, but time is of the essence. Opportunities like this don't wait forever. Logan's eyes narrowed slightly. I'm aware, but rushing into things has never been my style. The tension at the table was palpable, and Mila felt like she was holding her breath. Natasha's confident mask was beginning to crack, though she quickly composed herself. Well, I trust you'll make the right choice, Natasha said, standing abruptly. I have to run. Let me know if you need anything. As she walked away, Logan's gaze followed her, his expression unreadable. Mila finally exhaled, her hands trembling slightly. Thank you, Mila, Logan said suddenly, breaking the silence. For what? She asked, startled. For having the courage to come to me, Logan said, his voice sincere. Not everyone would. Mila felt a lump rise in her throat, but she nodded. I just hope it helps. Logan gave her a faint smile before standing. It already has. As he left the cafe, Mila watched him go, a mixture of relief and apprehension swirling in her chest. She had taken a step into something much bigger than herself, and there was no turning back now. In the shadowed corner of the cafe, Natasha watched them both, her eyes narrowing with cold calculation. The following morning, Logan Turner stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his high-rise office, his reflection cast in the glass as the San Francisco skyline stretched out before him. Normally, this view grounded him, a reminder of everything he'd built, every challenge he'd overcome. But today, the city felt distant, muted, like the roar of an engine fading into the background. The weight of Mila's words pressed against him like a leaden fog. Natasha Reed, his right hand, his confidant for over a decade, was under scrutiny. Could she really be working with Helios Corp? The thought sent a sharp pang through his chest. Behind him, Oliver Quinn's voice cut through the silence. We have a start, but it's thin. Logan turned, his eyes sharp. Oliver was seated at the sleek conference table, his laptop open, a few scattered files and notes spread around him. The investigator's calm demeanor belied the gravity of what he was saying. Thin isn't good enough, Logan said, his voice firm. If Natasha's truly doing what Mila claims, I need concrete proof. We're not dealing with speculation here. This is Ecosphere's future. Oliver nodded, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. I understand, but Natasha's not sloppy. If she's hiding something, it's buried deep. I've managed to track a few offshore transactions tied to someone using her alias, but nothing directly incriminating, yet. Logan paced the room, his hands clenched into fists. And Helios Corp? What do we have on them? Plenty, Oliver said, tapping at his keyboard. They've got a reputation for acquiring stolen tech and repackaging it as their own. But this time, they're careful. If Natasha's feeding them information, she's smart enough not to leave an obvious trail. A knock at the door made Logan pause. He exchanged a quick glance with Oliver before saying, Come in. The door opened to reveal Natasha herself, a file tucked under one arm, her polished confidence radiating as she stepped inside. Logan, she said with a bright smile. Got a minute? Oliver quickly closed his laptop and stood. I'll catch up with you later, he muttered, brushing past Natasha without making eye contact. Logan's heart thudded as he turned to face her. What's on your mind? Natasha placed the file on his desk and slid it toward him. This is everything we need to move forward with the Helios Corp partnership, she said smoothly. I've streamlined the terms and addressed their concerns. We're in a strong position. Logan studied her, his face unreadable. I haven't decided on that deal yet. Her smile faltered briefly before she recovered. Logan, we've been through this. Helios Corp's resources will catapult Ecosphere into the global market. This isn't just a business decision, it's strategy. And if it's the wrong strategy? Logan asked, his voice low but pointed. Natasha's eyes flickered just for a moment. Logan, we've known each other long enough for you to trust my judgment. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze unwavering. Trust is earned, Natasha. Always. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and an almost imperceptible tension flickered across her expression. I hope you're not letting outside influences cloud your thinking, she said, her tone colder now. Before Logan could respond, her phone buzzed. Natasha glanced at it quickly, her expression tightening before she forced a smile. I'll leave this with you, she said, gesturing to the file. Let me know when you're ready to make the call. As she exited, Logan's fists unclenched, but the knot in his stomach remained. Myla Parker slid into her usual spot at the corner of her apartment's tiny desk, her laptop humming to life. The modest space was cluttered with books, coffee mugs, and notes from her journalism classes. She stared at the blank Word document on the screen, trying to organize her thoughts, but her mind was racing. She couldn't let it go. Natasha's voice from the cafe, the cryptic details Elliot had mentioned, Logan's expression when she'd warned him, it all swirled together in her head. The stakes were bigger than she'd realized. Her phone buzzed, startling her. The message was from an unknown number. Stop digging, Mila. This isn't your fight. A chill ran down her spine. She glanced around her apartment as though the sender might be watching her, then quickly drew the blinds. Her fingers trembled as she typed a reply. Who is this? The response was instant. Last warning. Myla's heart pounded. She set the phone down, pacing the room. Whoever had sent that text knew what she was doing, and they wanted her to stop. Before she could overthink it, she grabbed her jacket and headed out into the cool evening air. The cafe was her safe space, her thinking spot, and she needed clarity. Natasha Reed stood in the dimly lit parking garage beneath Ecosphere's headquarters, her phone pressed to her ear. We have a problem, she said curtly, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. The voice on the other end was calm, almost amused. You're panicking, Natasha. Not a good look. I'm not panicking, she snapped. Logan's stalling, and that barista, Mila, she knows too much. Then handle it, the voice replied. This isn't complicated. We're on a deadline, and we expect results. Natasha clenched her jaw. I'll take care of it, but you'd better hold up your end. The line went dead, and Natasha shoved her phone into her pocket, her hands shaking despite herself. When Logan arrived at the cafe that evening, he spotted Mila immediately. She was hunched over her laptop, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. He approached her table, his voice low. Mila. She looked up, startled, then quickly closed her laptop. Mr. Turner, I didn't expect to see you. Logan, he corrected, sitting down across from her. We need to talk. Mila glanced around nervously, leaning in. Is everything okay? I've been looking into Natasha, Logan said quietly. There's something there. I just don't know what yet. Mila hesitated, then opened her laptop again. I've been doing some digging too. Look at this. She showed him screenshots of Helios Corp's recent press releases, paired with leaked patents that bore an uncanny resemblance to Ecosphere's designs. This isn't just similar, Logan murmured, his brow furrowing. This is identical. Myla nodded, and it didn't stop there. Helios Corp has been poaching employees from other tech companies too. It's a pattern. Logan's jaw tightened. If Natasha's involved in this... He didn't finish the thought, the weight of betrayal too much to articulate. Logan, Myla said, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. If you want to stop this, you're going to need more than suspicions. I know, Logan said, his voice grim. That's why I'm asking for your help. Myla blinked, caught off guard. My help. You noticed what no one else did, Logan said. You connected the dots before I could. If you're willing, I could use someone like you to help figure out exactly what's going on. Myla hesitated, her mind racing. This wasn't what she'd signed up for, but the determination in Logan's eyes made her pause. Okay, she said finally. I'm in. Logan nodded, his expression softening. Thank you. We'll get to the bottom of this. Together. As they sat in the dimly lit cafe, a new partnership was formed, one born out of necessity but bound by a shared purpose. And neither of them realized just how dangerous the path ahead would become. The sun dipped below the San Francisco skyline, casting long, jagged shadows across Ecosphere's glassy headquarters. Inside Logan Turner's private office, the tension was almost palpable. He leaned over the sprawling blueprint table, studying patent documents and recent press clippings Myla had collected. His mind churned with frustration, disbelief, and a growing determination. Helios Corp isn't just playing dirty, Logan muttered, running a hand through his dark hair. They're dismantling everything I've worked for, and Natasha's helping them. Mila Parker sat across from him, her laptop open and glowing. Her fingers hovered over the keys as she hesitated to speak. She had spent the past few hours poring over everything she could find about Helios Corp's operations, Natasha's connections, and the concerning patterns linking them. You know, she began softly, when I overheard Natasha at the cafe, I didn't think it would go this deep. But, Logan, this isn't just business to them. It's personal. They want you gone. Logan's jaw tightened. I've built this company on trust, on integrity. If Natasha is betraying me... He stopped, the words catching in his throat. I won't let her destroy Ecosphere. Before either of them could speak further, Oliver Quinn strode into the room, a file tucked under his arm. The seasoned investigator looked more serious than usual, his brow furrowed deeply. We've got a problem, Oliver announced, closing the door behind him. Mila and Logan both turned to face him. What is it? Logan asked. Oliver placed the file on the table and opened it, revealing a series of printouts. I've traced Natasha's financial activity. She's been funneling money into a private offshore account under the alias N. Carter. The transactions match the timing of several key meetings she's had with Helios Corp executives. Logan's heart sank as he stared at the evidence. So it's true, he murmured. That's not all, Oliver continued. She's been working with a known fixer, someone who specializes in erasing digital footprints. If we don't act fast, she could cover her tracks completely. Myla leaned forward, her brows knitted in concern. So, what do we do? How do we stop her? Oliver's gaze shifted to Logan. We need to make her slip up. If she's working this hard to stay ahead of us, then forcing her into a corner is our best chance. We need her to make a mistake. Logan nodded slowly, his mind already working through the possibilities. And what about Helios Corp? If they're preparing to launch their stolen patents, we don't have much time. That's where you come in, Oliver said, turning to Myla. You've already proven you're sharp. Natasha doesn't see you as a threat, and that's an advantage. We'll use it to gather more intel. Mila's eyes widened. You want me to spy on her? Not spy, Oliver clarified. Observe. Natasha still frequents that cafe, right? She's comfortable there. People let their guard down when they think they're in familiar territory. Myla hesitated, glancing at Logan. I'll do whatever it takes to help, but if she finds out... She won't, Logan said firmly. I won't let her touch you, Mila. The conviction in his voice steadied her nerves, and she nodded. Okay, tell me what to look for. The following morning, Myla resumed her shift at the cafe, her senses heightened. Every small movement, every whispered conversation felt like a potential clue. It wasn't long before Natasha appeared, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. She ordered her usual cappuccino and settled into a table near the back, her phone in hand. Mila kept herself busy, staying within earshot without drawing attention. She caught snippets of Natasha's conversation, mentions of timelines, signatures, and finalizing the transfer. But it wasn't enough to connect the dots. Then, Natasha did something unusual. She pulled out a small USB drive from her bag, inserting it into her laptop. Mila's pulse quickened as she noticed Natasha glancing around, her demeanor more guarded than usual. Taking a deep breath, Mila approached with a tray of sugar packets and stirrers. "Just restocking the table," she said casually, trying to mask her pounding heart. Natasha barely glanced at her, but minimized the screen on her laptop in one smooth motion. Mila caught a glimpse of a file name before it disappeared. Ecosphere Confidential. Phase 2. As Mila returned to the counter, her mind raced. That USB drive had to contain something critical. But how could she get close enough to find out more? Her thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice. "You okay?" She turned to see Elliot Carr leaning on the counter, his usual tech gear slung over one shoulder. "Elliot," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," he said, his smile fading as he noticed her serious expression. "What's going on?" Mila hesitated, then lowered her voice. "If someone's using a USB drive to transfer sensitive files, is there a way to monitor it without actually taking the drive?" Elliot's brow furrowed. "Depends. If you can see the laptop, you could mirror the activity with the right software, but you'd need access to the network." "Can you help me set that up?" Mila asked, her tone urgent. Elliot raised an eyebrow. "Mila, what are you getting yourself into?" "I can't explain," she said quickly. "Just trust me, please." After a long pause, Elliot nodded. "Okay, but you owe me an explanation eventually." By late afternoon, Mila had everything she needed. Elliot's makeshift monitoring software was discreetly running on the cafe's Wi-Fi network, giving her a glimpse of any data transfers happening nearby. As Natasha worked on her laptop, Mila discreetly checked her phone. The software flagged a file transfer in progress, one originating from Natasha's computer. Her breath caught as she read the file names: Ecosphere project plans, executive signatures, market launch timelines. It was all there. Proof of Natasha's betrayal. Before Mila could think of her next move, Natasha stood abruptly, closing her laptop and slipping the USB drive back into her bag. Her phone buzzed, and she answered it quickly, her voice sharp. "I'm on my way," Natasha said, heading toward the door. Mila's heart pounded as she texted Logan, "She's transferring files. USB drive. Meet me ASAP." Logan and Oliver arrived at the cafe within the hour, meeting Mila in the back alley to avoid drawing attention. "I saw the files," Mila said breathlessly. "It's everything. Your plans, your launch dates. She's sending it to Helios Corp." Logan's face hardened. "Then we act now." Oliver nodded. "We'll intercept her at her next meeting. Mila, you've done more than enough. Let us handle the rest." But Mila shook her head. "I'm not stopping now. If Natasha finds out what we're doing, she'll cover her tracks. We have to catch her red-handed." Logan looked at her, a mix of admiration and concern in his eyes. "Mila, this is dangerous." "So is letting her get away with it," Mila shot back. Oliver smirked. "She's got guts, I'll give her that." Logan exhaled, then nodded. "All right, let's end this." Together they set their plan into motion, unaware that Natasha was already one step ahead. Rain drizzled over the glowing city lights of San Francisco, painting the streets with a glossy sheen. Logan Turner sat in his sleek black sedan, his fingers tapping rhythmically against the leather steering wheel. Beside him, Oliver Quinn scrolled through his phone, his expression grim as he checked for updates on Natasha Reed's movements. "She's at the Luxor building," Oliver said finally, breaking the heavy silence. "Private suite on the 24th floor. That's where the transfer is happening." Logan clenched his jaw. "And Helios Corp? Is anyone from their team there?" "Confirmed," Oliver replied. "Their CTO and a couple of lawyers. This isn't just a handoff, Logan. This is a deal." Logan felt his pulse quicken. For days the evidence had been mounting, but now it was clear. Natasha wasn't just betraying him, she was staging a full-scale corporate coup. The files on her USB drive, if handed over, could give Helios Corp the edge to dominate the renewable energy market and destroy Ecosphere in the process. In the back seat, Mila Parker adjusted her hoodie nervously, her laptop balanced precariously on her knees. She'd insisted on coming along, much to Logan's disapproval, but her determination left little room for argument. "We need a clear plan," Mila said, her voice steady despite the anxiety flickering in her eyes. "If we just storm in there without proof, Natasha will spin it. She'll make you look like the villain, Logan." "She's right," Oliver agreed, glancing at Logan. "Natasha's slippery. If we don't have hard evidence and witnesses, she'll wriggle out of this." Logan exhaled slowly, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "We have to get the drive. It's the only way." Mila hesitated, then held up her phone. "I installed tracking software earlier today on the USB drive. If we can get her to plug it in again, I can monitor the data transfer in real time. It'll give us leverage." Logan turned to her, surprise flickering across his face. "You can do that?" She nodded, her determination unwavering. "It's already set up. All I need is access to the same network she's on." Oliver smirked. "Smart move. But that means one of us has to get inside." Logan glanced at Mila, then back at Oliver. "You handle the lobby," he said. "Make sure no one suspicious comes in or out. Mila and I will go upstairs." Oliver frowned. "Logan, you sure about this? Natasha isn't just going to let you waltz in there." "She won't have a choice," Logan replied, his voice firm. "This ends tonight." The elevator ride to the 24th floor was a tense, silent ordeal. Mila clutched her laptop, her hands trembling slightly. Logan noticed and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Hey," he said softly, his usual commanding tone tempered with warmth. "You don't have to do this." Mila shook her head. "Yes, I do. If we don't stop her, everything you've worked for could be gone. I can't just stand by." Logan nodded, a flicker of admiration in his gaze. "You're braver than most people I know, Mila." The elevator chimed, and the doors slid open to reveal a lavish hallway lined with frosted glass doors. Logan took the lead, his broad frame exuding quiet authority as they approached the suite. Mila lagged behind, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking straight into a trap. Inside the suite, Natasha sat at the head of a long conference table, her demeanor calm, but her eyes sharp. Across from her, Helios Corp's CTO, a wiry man with slicked-back hair, studied a laptop screen while two lawyers shuffled papers beside him. "Let's not waste time," Natasha said coolly. "You've seen the files. Once the transfer is complete, we'll finalize the agreement." The CTO smirked. "You're as efficient as ever, Natasha. No wonder Ecosphere thrived under your watch." Natasha's lips curved into a sly smile. "Logan's vision is inspiring, but vision doesn't win markets. Strategy does." Just as she reached for the USB drive, the door burst open. Logan strode in, his presence immediately commanding attention. Natasha's smile froze, and the Helios Corp team exchanged uneasy glances. "Logan," Natasha said smoothly, masking her surprise. I wasn't expecting you. Clearly, Logan replied, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. His eyes locked on the USB drive. I'd like to know what's on that. Natasha's composure didn't falter. She leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. Business negotiations, Logan. You understand how these things work. This isn't business, Logan snapped. This is betrayal. Natasha's smile wavered for the first time. Careful with your accusations. You wouldn't want to say something you can't take back. I have nothing to take back, Logan said, his voice rising. I know about the offshore accounts, the stolen patents, the deals with Helios Corp. How long have you been planning this, Natasha? Before she could respond, Myla stepped into the room, her laptop open. We can prove it, she said, her voice shaking but resolute. That USB drive, it's loaded with Ecosphere's proprietary data, and it's linked to an offshore account under your alias. Natasha's eyes narrowed, her calm veneer cracking. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? Myla countered, holding up her phone. I'm already monitoring the transfer. Everything you're sending to Helios Corp, I've got a copy. Panic flashed across Natasha's face before she quickly masked it. This is absurd. Logan, are you really going to trust a barista over me? I trust the truth, Logan said coldly, and the truth is written all over your actions. The Helios Corp CTO stood abruptly, his face pale. I think we've seen enough. We're withdrawing from this negotiation. Natasha whipped around to face him. What? No, you can't. We can, the CTO said firmly. We don't deal with liabilities. As the Helios Corp team hurriedly gathered their belongings, Natasha turned back to Logan, her fury barely contained. You think you've won? She hissed. This isn't over. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Logan stepped closer, his voice low and steady. You've already shown me what you're capable of, and it ends here. Natasha's composure shattered. She grabbed the USB drive and lunged for the door, but Oliver appeared in the doorway, blocking her escape. Going somewhere? Oliver asked, smirking. Natasha froze, her chest heaving with rage and frustration. Logan took the USB drive from her trembling hand, his gaze unwavering. It's over, Natasha, he said quietly. You're finished. As security arrived to escort her out, Natasha's defiant gaze lingered on Logan. You'll regret this, she spat before disappearing down the hall. Logan stood still, the tension slowly draining from his body. He turned to Mila, a faint smile breaking through his stern expression. You saved Ecosphere, he said softly. Mila shook her head. We did. For the first time in days, Logan felt a glimmer of relief, but deep down, he knew the battle wasn't entirely over. Natasha's words echoed in his mind, a chilling reminder that some threats never truly go away. The air inside Ecosphere's headquarters was heavy with the aftermath of the confrontation. Logan Turner stood in his office, staring out at the shimmering San Francisco skyline. The USB drive sat on his desk, an unassuming object that held the truth of Natasha's betrayal. Behind him, Myla Parker leaned against the wall, her arms crossed tightly. She had never imagined being thrust into a situation like this, but the reality of what they had uncovered was staggering. Oliver Quinn, pacing near the door, broke the silence. She's not going to slink away quietly, Oliver said. Natasha's the kind of person who fights back no matter how cornered she is. Logan turned, his expression hard but composed. Let her try. The damage she's already done to Ecosphere is enough to bring her down. Myla frowned, her voice hesitant. What if she has more? Something we didn't see coming? Oliver stopped pacing, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. That's a fair point. People like Natasha don't put all their cards on the table. If we push too hard, we might provoke her into doing something worse. Logan's shoulders tensed. He knew Oliver was right, but the thought of holding back left a bitter taste in his mouth. He glanced at Mila, her concern evident in her eyes. "She said it wasn't over," Mila said softly. What if she wasn't bluffing? The next morning, Mila arrived at the cafe earlier than usual. Her shift didn't start for another hour, but she needed the familiarity of the space, the hum of espresso machines, the faint chatter of customers, to ground her. Yet even here, she couldn't shake the lingering tension. As she set up the counter, her phone buzzed. She hesitated, her heart skipping a beat, before she saw Logan's name on the screen. "We have a situation," Logan said when she answered. His voice was clipped, urgency lacing every word. "Can you come to my office?" "I'll be there as soon as I can," Mila replied, grabbing her bag. By the time she reached Ecosphere, the atmosphere was electric. Employees whispered in the hallways, their faces tight with unease. When Mila entered Logan's office, she found him standing beside Oliver, both of them staring at a monitor displaying a headline: "Ecosphere CEO accused of fraudulent dealings with international partners." Mila's stomach sank. "What is this?" "Natasha," Logan said, his voice sharp. "She leaked fabricated documents to the media, painting me as corrupt, and it's already spreading." "She's playing the long game," Oliver muttered, his tone tinged with frustration. "Discrediting you before you can fully expose her. Classic misdirection." Mila moved closer to the screen, scanning the article. "What about the USB drive? Can't we use it to prove she's lying?" Logan exhaled, his frustration evident. "We're working on it, but the legal team says it'll take time to sort through everything and present it in a way that discredits her claims." Time. It was the one thing they didn't have. "I'm sorry, Logan," Mila said quietly, guilt tugging at her. "I thought we stopped her." Logan shook his head, his expression softening. "This isn't your fault, Mila. You've done more than anyone could have expected." Oliver cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "We need to think strategically. Natasha's using the court of public opinion. If we don't counter her narrative, it won't matter what evidence we have later." Logan nodded, his gaze sharpening. "Then we fight fire with fire." That afternoon, Logan held an emergency meeting with his PR team, outlining a plan to respond to Natasha's smear campaign. Mila sat quietly in the corner, taking in every detail. Watching Logan command the room was awe-inspiring. His calm yet firm demeanor reminded everyone why he was a leader worth following. "We can't just deny the accusations," Logan said. "We need to redirect the narrative. Show the world what Ecosphere stands for and why we're worth trusting." One of the PR specialists nodded. "We could focus on the projects you've spearheaded, highlight the transparency initiatives you've implemented." Logan glanced at Mila. "What do you think?" Surprised by the question, Mila hesitated. "I think people respond to authenticity. If you tell your story, why you started Ecosphere, what drives you, it might make a stronger impact than just defending yourself." Logan considered her words, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Good point." As the team began drafting responses, Logan leaned over to Mila, his voice low. "Thanks. Your perspective helps cut through the noise." Mila felt a warmth rise in her chest, but before she could respond, Oliver entered the room, his expression grim. "We've got another problem," Oliver announced. "Natasha's not just attacking Logan. She's going after Ecosphere directly." In a dimly lit boardroom on the outskirts of the city, Natasha sat across from a man whose mere presence radiated power. He was older, with a sharp suit and an even sharper gaze. "You're confident this will work?" the man asked, his tone skeptical. Natasha smirked, leaning back in her chair. "The foundation's already laid. Logan's scrambling to put out fires, and by the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. The man studied her for a long moment before nodding. Then proceed. But remember, if this falls apart, you're on your own. Natasha's smirk faltered briefly, but she quickly recovered. It won't fall apart. As the man left, Natasha pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages. She paused at one from an unknown number, her expression darkening. They're closing in. Be ready to cut ties. Her grip tightened on the phone. She wasn't about to let Logan win, not after everything she'd done to secure her position. Back at Ecosphere, Logan, Mila and Oliver pored over new developments. Natasha had begun reaching out to key investors, sowing doubt about Ecosphere's stability. Rumors of insider corruption swirled, and shares had taken a noticeable dip. She's trying to gut us from the inside, Oliver said, his tone grim. If she pulls enough support, it could cripple the company. We can't let that happen, Logan replied. He turned to Mila. We need to find out who's helping her. She's not doing this alone. Mila nodded. I'll look into her connections. There might be a pattern we've missed. As she worked, Logan paced the room, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that Natasha still had a card up her sleeve, something that could tip the scales completely. And as much as he hated to admit it, the stakes were higher than he'd ever faced. Late that night, Mila sat alone in her apartment, her laptop casting a soft glow across the room. She sifted through emails, financial records, and news articles, searching for anything that could tie Natasha to her collaborators. Then she found it, a series of encrypted messages between Natasha and a mysterious entity listed only as *Aegis*. The messages were cryptic, but one line stood out. The final phase is in motion. Secure the assets before Ecosphere's response gains traction. Mila's stomach twisted. She picked up her phone, dialing Logan immediately. I found something, she said as soon as he answered. She's working with someone called Aegis, and they're planning something big. I think it's about the company's assets. Logan's voice was tense. Meet me at the office. We're going to end this. Mila grabbed her things and headed out, the weight of the discovery pressing heavily on her shoulders. She didn't know exactly what Natasha's next move was, but one thing was clear. It was bigger than they had imagined. And if they didn't act fast, it could be the end of Ecosphere altogether. The soft hum of servers filled the darkened office as Logan Turner stood at the edge of the conference room, staring at a digital map projected on the wall. Mila Parker sat at the large table beside Oliver Quinn, her laptop glowing faintly in the dim light. She had barely taken a breath since uncovering the name Aegis. The weight of what they were facing loomed over all of them, like a storm about to break. Oliver leaned forward, pointing to a series of encrypted transactions on the screen. This is where it gets messy. Aegis isn't just one person, it's a shell operation, a front for something bigger. How much bigger? Logan asked, his tone cold and precise. Global, Oliver replied. They specialize in hostile corporate takeovers. They've brought down some of the largest tech companies in Europe and Asia over the past decade. If Natasha's working with them, this isn't just about stealing data, it's about dismantling Ecosphere entirely. Mila's heart sank. And we're the next target? Oliver nodded grimly. Looks like it. Logan's fists clenched at his sides. They're not going to win. Not here. Not now. Mila hesitated before speaking, her voice quiet but steady. The messages I found, they mentioned securing the assets. What do you think that means? It could mean anything, Oliver said, rubbing his temples. But if I had to guess, they're trying to freeze or redirect Ecosphere's funds, cut you off at the knees before you can fight back. Logan exhaled sharply, pacing the room. We need to move faster. If they gain access to our accounts, it's game over. Already ahead of you, Oliver said, tapping at his laptop. I've been working with your financial team to lock down everything, but it's a temporary fix. Aegis has the resources to break through if we don't find a way to stop them. Mila closed her laptop, her mind racing. Then we need to hit them where it hurts. If we can expose Aegis and Natasha before they make their next move, it could throw them off balance. Logan stopped pacing, his eyes meeting hers. How? Mila swallowed hard. We need a name. Someone behind Aegis who isn't hiding in the shadows. If we can connect Natasha to them directly, we might have a chance. Oliver frowned. Easier said than done. Aegis operates like a ghost, but... He paused, scrolling through his screen. There's one name that keeps popping up in their transactions. Adrian Cross. He's a mid-level operative, but he's sloppy. Left a few breadcrumbs in their previous takeovers. Logan's jaw tightened. Where can we find him? Oliver smirked. You're not going to like this. He's in town, staying at the Park Haven Hotel. Perfect, Logan said, already moving toward the door. Let's pay him a visit. Hold on, Oliver said, stepping in front of him. We can't just barge in there. If Cross knows we're onto him, he'll vanish before we can get anything useful. Then what do you suggest? Logan asked, his voice sharp. Oliver glanced at Mila. We need someone he won't see coming. Mila's eyes widened. You mean me? You've already proven you're good at staying under the radar, Oliver said. If you can get close to him, maybe you can find out what he knows. That's too dangerous, Logan said immediately, shaking his head. I'm not putting her in harm's way. Mila stood, her gaze steady. Logan, we don't have a choice. If Adrian Cross is the key to stopping Aegis, I'm in. Logan looked at her, his expression torn. He saw the resolve in her eyes, the same determination that had driven her to uncover Natasha's betrayal in the first place. Finally, he nodded. Fine, but you're not going alone. I'll be nearby. The Park Haven Hotel was a sleek, modern building with glass walls that reflected the city lights. Mila stepped into the lobby, her heart pounding. She wore a simple black dress, her laptop bag slung over one shoulder. Logan and Oliver were parked in a car outside, their voices in her ear through a discreet earpiece. Adrian Cross is in the lounge, Oliver said. He's wearing a grey suit, black tie, sitting near the bar. Got it, Mila whispered, her voice barely audible. She scanned the room as she entered the lounge, her eyes landing on a man matching Oliver's description. Adrian Cross was in his early 40s, with slicked-back hair and a sharp, calculating gaze. He sipped a glass of whiskey, his phone resting on the bar beside him. Mila approached cautiously, her palms sweaty. She slid onto the bar stool next to him, offering a polite smile. Rough day? Cross glanced at her, his expression guarded. Something like that. The bartender appeared, and Mila ordered a sparkling water, keeping her tone light. I'm Mila, by the way. Adrian, he replied curtly, clearly uninterested in small talk. Mila leaned back slightly, feigning disinterest. I'm in town for work. Feels like everyone here is. Let me guess. Tech? Cross's eyes flicked toward her, suspicion creeping into his gaze. Something like that. Mila took a sip of her drink, her heart racing. Let me guess again. You're not a fan of small talk. Cross smirked faintly. You're perceptive. I'll take that as a compliment, Mila said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. As they spoke, Oliver's voice crackled in her ear. Keep him talking. I'm running a background trace on his phone. Mila shifted in her seat, subtly angling her bag so her laptop could pick up the nearby Wi-Fi signals. So, Adrian, what brings you to San Francisco? Business or pleasure? Cross chuckled darkly. Definitely business. And you? Same, Mila replied. But business here feels more like survival lately. The tech world can be ruthless. Cross's expression darkened slightly. You don't know the half of it. Before Mila could respond, Logan's voice came through her earpiece, urgent and low. "Mila," his phone just pinged. "He's sending messages to Natasha." Mila's pulse quickened. "Ruthless doesn't even begin to cover it," she said aloud, leaning forward slightly. "It's like everyone's out for blood." Cross studied her for a long moment, his sharp gaze searching for any hint of pretense. "You're smarter than you look, Mila. Maybe too smart." Her breath caught, but she forced herself to stay calm. "What's that supposed to mean?" Cross stood abruptly, grabbing his phone and downing the last of his whiskey. "It means you should be careful who you trust." Before she could stop him, he slipped out of the lounge and disappeared into the crowd. "Mila, are you okay?" Logan's voice came through her earpiece. She exhaled shakily, grabbing her laptop bag. "I'm fine, but I think he knows something's up." "Good," Oliver said. "That means he's rattled, and when people are rattled, they make mistakes." As Mila left the hotel, her thoughts raced. They were getting closer, but the stakes were rising with every step. Adrian Cross had given them a glimpse into Aegis's shadowy world, but it was clear that they were running out of time. Natasha's final play was looming, and if they didn't stop her soon, the fallout would be catastrophic. The night air outside the Parkhaven Hotel was sharp, tinged with the hum of the city that never quite slept. Mila Parker tightened her grip on her bag, her heart still racing from her brief encounter with Adrian Cross. The cryptic look in his eyes and his parting words had unsettled her more than she cared to admit. She scanned the street, spotting Logan Turner leaning against his sleek black sedan, his arms crossed and his expression tense. "Mila," Logan called softly as she approached. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though her voice betrayed her nerves. He knew something was off. I tried to keep him talking, but he bolted. Oliver Quinn stepped out of the car, his phone in hand. "That's actually good news," he said, his tone measured. "Cross running means he's spooked. Spooked people make mistakes." "Did we get anything from his phone?" Mila asked, looking at Oliver. "Just a partial trace," Oliver replied, scrolling through his screen. "He sent a message to someone minutes before he left the bar. It was encrypted, but we picked up a location, some kind of warehouse on the outskirts of the city." Logan's brow furrowed. "A warehouse? That doesn't sound like a coincidence." "It's not," Oliver confirmed. "Aegis likes to operate in places that are low profile but secure. This could be their staging ground." "Then we go," Logan said without hesitation. "If Cross is heading there, we might catch him with something that ties him directly to Natasha." Mila glanced between them, her voice tinged with concern. "What if it's a trap? Cross might know we're following him." Logan turned to her, his gaze steady. "We can't afford to wait. Every minute we lose gives Natasha and Aegis more time to act." Mila swallowed her nerves and nodded. "Then let's do it." The drive to the warehouse felt endless. The city lights faded into darkness as Logan, Mila, and Oliver ventured into the industrial outskirts of San Francisco. The area was desolate, with rows of crumbling buildings and empty lots that seemed to stretch on forever. "There," Oliver said, pointing ahead. "That's the location." The warehouse loomed in the distance, its metal walls glinting faintly under the moonlight. Logan parked the car a block away, cutting the engine as they all sat in tense silence. "What's the plan?" Mila asked, breaking the stillness. "We scout first," Logan said. "Oliver and I will circle around, see what we're dealing with. Mila, stay here and monitor anything you can from your laptop." "No," Mila said firmly, shaking her head. "I'm not staying behind. If something happens, you'll need an extra set of eyes." Logan hesitated, clearly torn, but Oliver spoke up. "She's proven herself, Logan. If she's coming, we need to move fast." "Fine," Logan relented. "But you stay close. No risks." Mila nodded, her resolve firm. Got it. They approached the warehouse cautiously, sticking to the shadows as they neared the entrance. The faint glow of lights seeped through the cracked windows, and muffled voices drifted from inside. Logan motioned for Oliver to take the left side while he and Myla crept toward the front. Mila's heart pounded as they pressed against the cold metal wall, the voices growing louder. Peering through a gap in the door, Logan spotted Adrian Cross standing near a makeshift table piled with documents and electronic equipment. A laptop was open in front of him, the screen glowing with lines of code. "He's not alone," Logan whispered to Mila, nodding toward two other figures, men in dark suits who stood nearby, their postures rigid and alert. "Security?" Mila asked quietly. "Most likely," Logan replied. "We need to get closer. If we can see what's on that laptop." Before he could finish, one of the men inside glanced toward the door, his movements sharp and deliberate. Logan pulled Myla back, his breath quickening. "They're on edge," Logan muttered. "We can't let them see us." Just as he spoke, the sound of a car engine rumbled in the distance. Logan, Myla, and Oliver ducked behind a stack of rusted barrels as headlights swept across the area. The car pulled up to the warehouse and a tall, elegant figure stepped out. Myla's blood ran cold as Natasha Reed emerged, her sharp heels clicking against the pavement. She carried herself with an air of confidence that sent a chill down Mila's spine. "Natasha," Logan hissed under his breath. His eyes burned with anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. Inside the warehouse, Cross greeted Natasha with a nervous smile. "You're late," he said, his tone uneven. "I had other business to attend to," Natasha replied coolly, brushing past him to examine the laptop. "What do we have?" Cross gestured to the screen. "The final phase. Aegis is prepared to move the assets within the next 24 hours. Once the funds are transferred, Ecosphere's accounts will be empty." Myla's breath hitched, and Logan's jaw clenched. He turned to Oliver, his voice barely audible. "Can you record this?" Oliver nodded, pulling out a small recording device. "Already on it," Natasha continued, her voice laced with disdain. "Logan thinks he's clever, but he doesn't realize how fragile his empire is. By the time he figures out what's happening, he'll be ruined." "What about the evidence he's gathered?" Cross asked. "The USB drive." Natasha smirked. "It won't matter. Aegis has contingency plans. If Logan tries to fight this, we'll bury him in so much red tape he won't be able to breathe." Mila's hands trembled, her anger and fear mixing into a volatile cocktail. She wanted to storm in, to confront Natasha and stop her plan, but Logan's hand on her arm held her back. "Not yet," Logan whispered, his voice steady. "We need more." The conversation inside shifted as Natasha handed Cross a small black device. "This is the encryption key," she said. "It's the only way to access the transfer files. Keep it secure." Oliver's eyes widened, and he whispered to Logan, "If we get that key, we can stop them." Logan nodded, his mind racing. "Then we take it." The next few moments happened in a blur. Logan signaled to Oliver, and the two men moved swiftly toward the side entrance while Myla stayed hidden, her heart hammering in her chest. Inside, Natasha and Cross were still focused on the laptop when Logan burst through the door. The security guards reacted instantly, drawing their weapons, but Oliver tackled one of them before he could fire. Chaos erupted as Logan lunged toward Cross, his fist connecting with the man's jaw. Cross stumbled, dropping the encryption key, which skittered across the floor. Natasha screamed in fury, her composure shattering as she tried to grab the device. Mila, unable to stay hidden any longer, ran into the warehouse. She spotted the encryption key lying beneath the table and dove for it, her fingers closing around the cool metal just as Natasha reached for her. "Give that to me," Natasha snarled, her face twisted with rage. "Never," Myla shot back, clutching the key tightly. Logan grabbed Natasha's arm, pulling her away from Mila. "It's over, Natasha." "You think this will stop me?" Natasha spat, her voice venomous. "You're a fool, Logan." "Maybe," Logan replied, "but at least I'm not a traitor." As sirens wailed in the distance, signaling the arrival of the police, Natasha's defiance began to crumble. Logan, Mila, and Oliver stood together, the encryption key secure in Mila's hand. For the first time in weeks, they felt a glimmer of hope, but they knew the battle wasn't over yet. Natasha's empire might be crumbling, but the war with Aegis was just beginning. The piercing sound of sirens grew louder, echoing through the empty streets surrounding the warehouse. The tension inside was suffocating as Logan Turner, Mila Parker, and Oliver Quinn stood their ground. Natasha Reed was seething, her carefully constructed plan unraveling in front of her eyes. Adrian Cross was sprawled on the floor, nursing his jaw, while the security guards groaned in defeat, their weapons kicked out of reach. Mila clutched the encryption key tightly, her knuckles white. She could feel its weight, not just in her hand, but in the implications of what they had just done. This tiny device could be the lifeline Ecosphere needed to survive, or the spark to ignite something far worse. Logan glanced at Oliver, his voice low but urgent. "The cops are almost here. We need to secure that key and figure out what Natasha's next move is before Aegis steps in." Natasha's laugh cut through the air, sharp and bitter. "You think this is over? You've won nothing, Logan. Aegis doesn't lose, and neither do I." Logan turned to her, his gaze cold and unyielding. "Your lies, your schemes, they're done. And when the authorities see what's on this key, they'll know exactly what you've been doing." Natasha stepped closer, her tone venomous. "You're in over your head, Logan. You have no idea the kind of people you're dealing with." Oliver stepped between them, his calm demeanor masking the tension in his voice. "Then maybe you should enlighten us. Or would you rather wait to explain it to the FBI?" Natasha's jaw tightened, her eyes darting to the nearest exit. Logan saw the flicker of panic in her expression and knew she was calculating her escape. He stepped forward, blocking her path. "You're not going anywhere." The sirens screeched to a halt outside, and moments later, the warehouse was bathed in the flashing red and blue lights of police cruisers. Officers poured in, their voices commanding as they took control of the scene. "Hands where we can see them!" an officer barked. Logan raised his hands slowly, nodding toward Mila. "She has the evidence. Don't let anyone touch it until we explain." The officer frowned but motioned for Mila to step forward. Reluctantly, she handed over the encryption key, her heart pounding as she tried to process everything that had just happened. "Who's in charge here?" the officer asked, his eyes narrowing. Logan stepped forward, his voice steady. "I am. My name's Logan Turner. I'm the CEO of Ecosphere, and this," he gestured toward Natasha, "is the person responsible for a coordinated attack on my company. That key holds proof." Natasha's laugh rang out again, her bravado returning. "Don't listen to him, he's desperate. Aegis will back me up." The officer looked between them, clearly trying to piece together the chaotic scene. "We'll sort this out back at the station. Everyone's coming in for questioning." Hours later, Logan sat in a sterile interrogation room, his frustration mounting. The encryption key had been taken into evidence, and he was still waiting for someone to confirm whether it had been decrypted. Across from him, Mila fidgeted in her chair, her anxiety written all over her face. "What if they don't believe us?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They will," Logan replied, though his tone was laced with doubt. "Once they see what's on that key, they'll have to." The door opened, and Oliver stepped in, his expression grim. "They're running the decryption now," he said, closing the door behind him. "But there's a problem." Logan's brow furrowed. "What kind of problem?" Oliver hesitated, glancing at Mila before answering. Natasha's playing the victim. She's claiming you set her up, that this whole thing was a smear campaign to take her down. Logan's fists clenched. She's trying to turn this around on me? She's good at it too, Oliver said. She's painting herself as the whistleblower who discovered your corruption. Mila shook her head, anger flaring in her voice. That's insane. The evidence proves it's her. Not if she's convinced them the evidence was planted, Oliver replied. That's why we need the data from the key. It's the only thing that can tip the scales. Logan stood, his frustration boiling over. Then we need to make sure they see the truth before Aegis finds a way to bury it. Back in her holding room, Natasha leaned back in her chair, her lips curling into a sly smile. She had already made her call, to a number only she knew, and the wheels were in motion. Aegis wouldn't leave her to rot. They had too much to lose. The door opened, and a man in an expensive suit stepped inside, his presence commanding. Natasha's smile widened. Right on time, she said smoothly. The man's gaze was icy as he sat across from her. Do you have any idea how much damage you've caused? Natasha's smile faltered slightly, but she quickly recovered. It's under control. Logan already has enough to expose us, the man interrupted, his voice sharp. Your carelessness has jeopardized everything. Natasha's defiance flickered, but she forced herself to remain calm. The key is in police custody. They'll never decrypt it in time. The man leaned forward, his tone deadly. They don't need to. Logan's team is relentless. If that data goes public, Aegis will burn, and so will you. For the first time, genuine fear crept into Natasha's expression. Then what do we do? The man stood, adjusting his tie. We clean this up, and if that means cutting you loose, so be it. Natasha's heart pounded as he walked out, leaving her alone with the weight of her mistakes. For the first time, she realized that Aegis wasn't her ally. It was her executioner. Meanwhile, back at Ecosphere, Logan, Mila, and Oliver regrouped. The encryption key had finally been decrypted, revealing a trove of damning evidence: financial transactions, offshore accounts, and communications between Natasha and Aegis operatives. It was the smoking gun they needed. This is it, Mila said, her voice shaking with a mix of relief and urgency. This proves everything. Logan nodded, his determination unwavering. We take this public. No more games. Oliver frowned. You realize what that means, right? Aegis won't just sit back and let this happen. They'll come after you. Let them, Logan said firmly. This isn't just about Ecosphere anymore. It's about exposing the truth. As the team prepared to release the evidence, Mila caught Logan's gaze. Are you sure about this? Once we do this, there's no turning back. Logan's expression softened. I'm sure. And I'm grateful for everything you've done, Mila. I couldn't have gotten this far without you. Mila nodded, her resolve hardening. Then let's finish this. With the click of a button, they sent the evidence to trusted media outlets, whistleblower platforms, and regulatory agencies. Within minutes, the world began to see the truth, and the cracks in Aegis's armor started to show. But as Logan watched the news unfold, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Natasha might be down, but Aegis was still out there, and their retaliation would be swift and merciless. The fallout from the evidence release was immediate and seismic. News outlets across the country ran breaking stories on Natasha Reed's betrayal and her connection to Aegis. Ecosphere employees, investors, and the general public were in shock as the revelations poured out. Proof of financial manipulation, espionage, and the deliberate sabotage of a company that had been a leader in sustainable energy. Logan Turner watched the chaos unfold from his office. The glow of the TV screen bathed the room in flickering light as reporters dissected the scandal. His phone buzzed constantly with calls and messages, but he ignored them, focusing instead on the task at hand. "We've started a war," Logan muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Myla Parker sat across from him, her face pale but resolute. "And we're winning," she said, though her voice wavered slightly. "The world knows the truth now. Natasha's finished." "She's not the one I'm worried about," Logan replied, his gaze darkening. "Aegis won't take this lying down." The sound of the door opening drew their attention. Oliver Quinn strode in, a grim expression on his face. "Logan, we've got a problem," Oliver announced. "Aegis is already moving. They've got lawyers filing injunctions, trying to suppress the evidence. And—" He hesitated, his jaw tightening. "What?" Logan demanded. Oliver handed him a tablet. "They've leaked something of their own. It's about you." Logan's stomach dropped as he read the headline. Ecosphere CEO accused of insider trading and financial misconduct. The accompanying article was filled with fabricated claims, fake documents, and strategically timed leaks designed to paint Logan as corrupt. Mila leaned forward, her eyes scanning the screen. "This is all lies. Anyone who looks closely can see that." "That's the point," Oliver said bitterly. "They're not trying to prove anything. They're trying to muddy the waters. If they can make people question Logan's integrity, it takes the focus off them." Logan exhaled sharply, setting the tablet down. "How bad is it?" Oliver hesitated. "Bad. Some of our investors are already spooked. Shares are taking a hit." Mila clenched her fists, anger flashing in her eyes. "This is exactly what Natasha warned us about. Aegis is trying to bury us in noise." "We need to fight back," Logan said, his voice firm. "Double down on the truth. If we let them control the narrative, we lose everything." Oliver nodded. "I'll reach out to the media outlets we've been working with, make sure they have the full context. But Logan, this won't stop here." "I know," Logan replied, his tone steely. "But I'm not backing down." Across town, in the dimly lit conference room of a high-rise, the heads of Aegis convened. The atmosphere was tense as the group analyzed the fallout from the Ecosphere scandal. "This was a disaster," one man growled, slamming his fist on the table. "Natasha was supposed to handle this quietly." "And she failed," another added, her tone cold. "Logan Turner's a bigger problem than we anticipated." The leader of the group, a man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, raised his hand for silence. "Enough," he said, his voice calm but commanding. "Natasha's mistakes have been exposed, but that doesn't mean we're out of options." "What do you suggest, Victor?" one of the others asked. Victor leaned forward, his expression sharp. "We shift focus. Logan Turner's made himself the face of this fight. If we take him down, Ecosphere crumbles with him." "And how do you plan to do that?" the woman asked, arching an eyebrow. Victor's lips curved into a faint smile. "We exploit his weaknesses. Everyone has them." Back at Ecosphere, Logan and his team worked tirelessly to counter Aegis's smear campaign. Myla spent hours combing through online forums and social media, identifying fake accounts spreading disinformation. Oliver coordinated with lawyers and PR specialists, crafting statements to refute the lies. But the pressure was mounting. Logan felt it in every call, every email, every wary glance from his employees. The weight of defending not just his reputation, but the future of his company was crushing. Late one evening, as the office emptied out, Logan found himself alone in the conference room. The dim light of the city skyline stretched out before him, a stark reminder of the battles he was fighting on all fronts. The door creaked open, and Myla stepped inside, a cup of coffee in her hands. "Thought you might need this," she said softly. Logan offered her a small, weary smile. "Thanks." She set the cup down in front of him and sat across the table, her gaze searching his face. "You look like you haven't slept in days." "I haven't," Logan admitted, leaning back in his chair. Every time I close my eyes, I see everything we're up against. Aegis, the media, the investors. It feels endless. Myla hesitated before speaking, her voice gentle but firm. You're not alone in this, Logan. You've got Oliver, the team, and me. Logan looked at her, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. I know, and I couldn't have made it this far without you. The moment hung in the air, heavy with unspoken emotions. Myla reached out, placing a hand over his. We'll get through this. Together. Logan nodded, his resolve hardening. Together. The next morning, Logan was jolted awake by the sound of his phone buzzing. He groggily answered, only to hear Oliver's panicked voice on the other end. Logan, you need to get to the office. Now. What's going on? Logan asked, already throwing on his jacket. Aegis just made their move, Oliver replied. They've filed a lawsuit against Ecosphere, accusing us of corporate espionage. Logan's heart sank. Espionage? That's insane. They're playing dirty, Oliver said, and it's working. Investors are pulling out left and right. If we don't act fast, we're done. By the time Logan arrived at the office, the atmosphere was chaotic. Employees huddled in tense conversations, their faces filled with worry. Mila met him at the entrance, her expression grim. They're hitting us from every angle, she said. Media, legal, financial. It's a full-on assault. Logan clenched his jaw. Then we fight back, harder. The day was a blur of meetings, phone calls and strategy sessions. Logan and his team worked tirelessly to stabilize the company, but the pressure was relentless. Aegis's influence was vast and their tactics ruthless. As night fell, Logan stood in his office, staring out at the city lights once more. Myla entered quietly, her presence a comforting anchor in the storm. Oliver's tracking some new leads, she said. We might be able to trace the lawsuit back to Aegis. Logan turned to her, his exhaustion evident. It feels like we're playing a game we can't win. Myla stepped closer, her voice firm. That's what they want you to think, but you're stronger than this, Logan. We all are. Logan looked at her, a flicker of determination returning to his eyes. Then let's prove it. Together they turned back to the fight, ready to face whatever came next. Because the battle wasn't just about saving Ecosphere, it was about standing up to the forces that sought to tear them down. And they weren't going to back down. Not now. Not ever. The tension inside Ecosphere's headquarters was palpable. The lawsuit filed by Aegis was a direct attack, and the timing couldn't have been worse. The media frenzy, coupled with the exodus of some investors, had created a storm that threatened to sink everything Logan Turner and his team had fought so hard to protect. Myla Parker paced back and forth in Logan's office, her mind racing. Oliver Quinn was seated at the conference table, furiously typing away on his laptop, pulling up every piece of evidence they had gathered against Aegis and Natasha Reed. We're holding together by a thread, Oliver said without looking up. If we don't find a way to turn this around, the board is going to start asking if you're the problem, Logan. Logan stood by the window, his arms crossed, staring at the city skyline. He didn't respond immediately. His mind was a whirlwind of frustration, fear, and determination. Finally he spoke, his voice low and steady. They can ask whatever they want, he said. I'm not letting Aegis win, not after everything they've done. Myla stopped pacing and turned to face him. But we need something concrete, something that doesn't just expose them. It has to obliterate them. We need a knockout punch. Oliver groaned, running a hand through his hair. Easier said than done. Aegis is smart. They've covered their tracks for years. Every move they make is calculated. Mila walked over to the table and leaned on it, her expression resolute. Then we need to be smarter. What about the encrypted files we pulled from the warehouse? Have we gone through all of them? Oliver sighed. Most of them, yeah. but we're running out of time to sift through the rest." Logan turned away from the window, his eyes sharp. "Then we work through the night, all of us." Myla hesitated, then nodded. "I'll start with the financial records again. If there's a pattern, I'll find it." Oliver grinned weakly. "Well, at least one of us has energy left. Let's do it." As the hours stretched into the night, the three of them worked tirelessly. Myla sifted through spreadsheets and emails, her sharp eyes scanning for inconsistencies. Oliver combed through communication logs and transaction histories. Logan, though exhausted, reviewed every detail they uncovered, searching for a thread they could pull to unravel Aegis's scheme. And then, just before dawn, Mila's voice broke the silence. "Wait, wait," she said, her tone urgent. "I think I've found something." Logan and Oliver rushed to her side, peering over her shoulder at the screen. Myla pointed to a series of transactions linked to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. "These transfers," she explained, her voice quick with excitement. "They're all tied to a shell company called Meridian Holdings. But look at this. Meridian's board overlaps with Aegis's leadership. They've been funneling money back and forth between their operations." Oliver's eyes widened. "This could prove they've been using Ecosphere as a pawn. If we can show that Meridian is funding the lawsuit against us, it links everything back to Aegis." Logan straightened, his fatigue momentarily forgotten. "Can we prove it?" Myla nodded. "I think so. There's a transaction here that coincides with the day Aegis filed the lawsuit. It's a massive wire transfer, like they were funding the whole operation." Oliver cracked a smile. "That's it. That's the connection we needed." Logan placed a hand on Mila's shoulder, his expression filled with gratitude. "You did it." Mila smiled, her cheeks flushing. "We did it." Armed with this new evidence, Logan's team moved quickly. They prepared a counter-lawsuit, complete with a detailed report exposing Aegis's financial manipulation and their ties to Meridian Holdings. The report was airtight, and Logan's legal team worked tirelessly to ensure there were no loopholes. At the same time, they reached out to their allies in the media, carefully crafting the narrative. This wasn't just about saving Ecosphere anymore. It was about exposing a global network of corporate corruption. The next day, Logan held a press conference. The room was packed with reporters, their cameras trained on him as he stepped up to the podium. His voice was calm but firm, each word carrying the weight of the fight they were waging. For too long, Aegis has operated in the shadows, using fear and deception to manipulate the business world. Today, that ends. We have uncovered irrefutable evidence of their illegal activities, and we are taking action. As Logan outlined the findings, the reporters scribbled furiously in their notebooks. Behind him, a massive screen displayed graphs, emails, and financial records, visual proof of everything he was saying. When he finished, the room erupted in questions, but Logan held up a hand. "I'll take questions after our team has submitted this evidence to the appropriate authorities. For now, know this. Ecosphere will not be silenced. We will not back down." The fallout was immediate. News outlets across the globe ran the story, dissecting Aegis's schemes and Meridian Holdings' involvement. Regulatory agencies launched investigations, and within days, subpoenas were issued. But the fight wasn't over. Aegis retaliated with a wave of counterattacks, hiring PR firms to discredit Logan and his team. The media buzzed with conflicting narratives, and the tension inside Ecosphere remained high. Late one night, Logan received a call from an unknown number. He hesitated before answering, his instincts on high alert. "Turner," a deep voice said, "you're playing a dangerous game." Logan's grip on the phone tightened. "Who is this?" "You think you've won, but Aegis doesn't lose. Walk away now, or you'll regret it." The line went dead. Logan stared at the phone, his mind racing. He knew the call was meant to intimidate him, but it only steeled his resolve. He wasn't backing down, not when they were so close to exposing the full extent of Aegis's corruption. He turned to Myla, who had entered the office moments before. "They're scared," he said, his voice steady. "Which means we're getting closer." Myla nodded, her expression fierce. "Then let's finish this." Over the next week, Ecosphere's team worked tirelessly, bolstered by the growing support of the public and their allies in the business world. The evidence against Aegis continued to pile up, and their defenses began to crumble. But just as Logan thought they were gaining the upper hand, Oliver burst into the office, his face pale. "They've frozen our accounts," Oliver said, his voice shaking. "Every penny. They're trying to choke us out." Logan's stomach dropped, but he forced himself to stay calm. "How long can we hold out?" "Not long," Oliver admitted. "If we don't get those funds released, we're done." Myla stepped forward, her voice filled with determination. "Then we find a way. There has to be something they missed, something we can use." Logan nodded, his resolve unshaken. "We've come too far to let them win now. Let's find it." As the team dove back into their work, the weight of the battle pressed down on them. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, one thing remained clear. They weren't just fighting for Ecosphere anymore. They were fighting for justice, and they wouldn't stop until they won. The room was silent, save for the faint hum of Logan Turner's computer. The tension was so thick it felt like a weight pressing on everyone in the conference room. Myla Parker stood by the window, arms crossed, her mind racing. Oliver Quinn was typing furiously, his face illuminated by the faint glow of his laptop screen. They had hit rock bottom, or so it seemed. "Logan," Myla said, breaking the stillness, "we can't keep going like this. They've frozen everything. Our payroll, our contracts, even our operating accounts. How much longer can we hold out?" Logan rubbed his temples, exhaustion etched across his face. "Not long. But there has to be a way to break through this. Aegis isn't invincible." Oliver glanced up, his expression grim. "They're damn close. These account freezes, they're coordinated with international banking networks. It's a move only someone with serious connections could pull off." Logan slammed his fist on the table, his frustration boiling over. "And we're supposed to just lie down and let them destroy us?" "Number. There's something we're missing, something we can use." Myla's phone buzzed on the table, jolting everyone from the tense silence. She glanced at the screen, her eyes narrowing. "It's from one of the whistleblower platforms we sent the evidence to," she said, answering quickly. "Hello?" A muffled voice came through the line, hurried and low. "You don't know me, but I've been following the story. I work at one of the banks Aegis uses for their offshore accounts." Myla's heart leapt. "Who is this?" "Call me Jules. That's all you need to know. Look, I don't have much time, but I can confirm something. Aegis isn't just targeting you. They've been using Meridian Holdings to funnel dirty money for years. If you can access their primary server, you'll find everything. Transaction records, communications, enough to bring the whole operation down." Mila's breath caught. "Their server? Where is it?" Jules hesitated. "It's in Zurich. Aegis runs a covert data center there. But listen, it's heavily protected. You'll need someone on the inside to get anywhere near it." Logan grabbed a notepad, scribbling down the details as Myla relayed them. "Why are you telling us this?" she asked, her voice filled with suspicion. "Because I'm sick of working for people like them," Jules said simply. "And because someone needs to stop them." The line went dead, leaving the room in stunned silence. Zurich was a world away from the chaos of San Francisco, but as Logan's team landed, the weight of their mission followed them. The city's crisp air and orderly streets belied the storm brewing beneath the surface. They checked into a modest hotel, laying low to avoid drawing attention. Logan, Mila, and Oliver huddled around a table, reviewing their plan. "We need to be in and out," Logan said, his voice firm. "Oliver, you'll monitor from the hotel. Mila and I will handle the groundwork." Mila raised an eyebrow. "You mean I'll handle the groundwork? You're the CEO of a global company, Logan. You're not exactly inconspicuous." Logan shot her a look. "I'm not sending you in there alone." "And I'm not letting you blow our cover," Mila retorted. "You need me to blend in, and I can do that better than you." Oliver raised a hand, cutting through the tension. "She's right, Logan. Mila's the best choice for this, but she'll need backup if things go sideways." Logan hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but I'm staying close." The Aegis data center was a fortress disguised as a sleek corporate office. Mila approached the building with a calm exterior, though her heart pounded in her chest. Dressed as a business consultant, she carried a briefcase filled with surveillance equipment, hidden cameras, and a secure laptop. "Comms check," Oliver's voice crackled in her ear. "Can you hear me?" "Loud and clear," Mila murmured, adjusting her earpiece. Logan's voice followed. "Be careful." "I will," she replied, stepping through the revolving doors into the lobby. The receptionist greeted her with a professional smile, and Mila flashed a forged badge identifying her as a systems auditor. "I'm here to review your network security protocols," she said smoothly. The receptionist nodded, handing her a visitor's pass. "Take the elevator to the 3rd floor. Someone will meet you there." Mila thanked her, stepping into the elevator. As the doors closed, she exhaled slowly, steadying her nerves. "3rd floor," Oliver said in her ear. "The server room is 2 levels down from there, in the sub-basement. You'll need to bypass at least 3 layers of security to get access." "Great," Mila muttered. "No pressure." The 3rd floor was a maze of cubicles and glass-walled offices. Mila navigated it with practiced ease, slipping into a maintenance corridor when no one was looking. From there, she located a stairwell and began her descent to the sub-basement. "First security checkpoint coming up," Oliver said. "Keycard access." Mila pulled out a device from her briefcase, a small handheld scanner that intercepted keycard signals. She swiped it across the reader, and the light turned green. The door clicked open. "One down," she whispered, moving forward. The sub-basement was eerily quiet, lit by harsh fluorescent lights. As Mila approached the server room, the tension in her chest grew heavier. The final door was secured with both a keypad and a biometric scanner. "Oliver," she said, her voice tight. "Give me a second," Oliver replied. "The keypad's standard. I can override it remotely. The biometric scanner is trickier, but I've got a workaround." Mila stood by the door, her breath quickening as seconds stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, Oliver's voice came through. "Keypad's clear. For the scanner, use the fingerprint overlay in your kit." Mila retrieved the thin adhesive strip from her case, pressing it against the scanner. The device hummed, then beeped, and the door slid open. "I'm in," she said, stepping inside. The server room was a labyrinth of towering racks, each humming with data. Mila located the primary server and connected her laptop, initiating the data transfer. 2 minutes, Oliver said. "Stay sharp." The sound of footsteps outside the door made her heart stop. She glanced at the live feed on her laptop, showing 2 guards approaching. "Logan," she whispered urgently. "I've got company." "Stay calm," Logan replied. "Can you hide?" Mila ducked behind a rack as the guards entered, their flashlights slicing through the dim room. She held her breath, clutching her laptop tightly. "What's taking so long?" she whispered to Oliver. "Almost there," he replied. 30 seconds. The guards moved closer, their voices low. Myla's pulse thundered in her ears as she crouched lower, praying they wouldn't spot her. "Transfer complete," Oliver said. "Get out of there." Mila disconnected her laptop and slipped toward the exit, staying in the shadows. As the guards rounded the corner, she slipped through the door and sprinted back to the stairwell. "Heading out," she said, her voice trembling with adrenaline. "Good work," Logan replied. "We'll meet you at the extraction point." By the time Myla reached the hotel, her nerves were frayed, but the data in her possession was worth it. Logan and Oliver were waiting, their expressions a mix of relief and pride. "You did it," Logan said, his voice filled with gratitude. Mila handed him the laptop, a faint smile on her lips. "We all did." As they reviewed the files, the magnitude of what they had uncovered became clear. Aegis's entire operation was laid bare, proof of their illegal activities across multiple continents. It was a treasure trove of evidence, enough to bring down the entire organization. But as they celebrated their success, Logan's phone buzzed with a new message. It was a single sentence, chilling in its simplicity. "This isn't over." Logan's jaw tightened, his resolve hardening. "Let them come," he said. "We're ready."